Welcome to the week number 5 overview video for managerial economics here at Rutgers Camden. And for week 5, we are going to be reviewing chapter 6 and 7, and chapter 6 regards cost. In particular, make sure you understand the importance of opportunity cost in any action that a manager might take. In particular, the fact that you have to consider the alternatives that are available to a manager. So it's really important to understand that if you're going to make a decision, you have to compare that to all the appropriate alternatives so you make a fully informed decision about the consequences of the actions that you undertake. Also, again, we're going to be going over short run versus long run costs, in particular, how the analysis of costs in the short run is different from the long run. In the short run, we oftentimes assume that there is one input that is fixed. For example, we oftentimes assume that capital is fixed. So how the decision-making process, when you have a fixed input in the short run, versus the long run when all inputs are variable. So understanding the implications of the difference between the long run and the short run and how that impacts the analysis a manager may take. Also, this notion of learning by doing in the production process, the importance of it, what it entails, what are the implications of it. And also, when a firm is producing multiple goods, and its need for cost information on those multiple goods, and how a firm can determine optimal production based upon the fact that they have multiple outputs that they're producing and they have multiple costs associated with that. From there, we move to Chapter 7, which is firm organization and market structure. In particular, make sure you're comfortable with how business laws affect business organization and how that impacts the objectives of a firm and a firm's decision-making process. How, for example, in a highly regulated market structure, how that impacts your decision-making process as a manager versus in a market where there is much less oversight by the government, and how that compares to a situation where you are highly regulated. All right? And the fact that profit maximization is the determination of how much to produce and also whether or not to produce at all. In the short run, it might pay to actually shut down a business. The example I oftentimes give in class is sometimes you might notice that some restaurants are closed during some particular days. All right, why would a firm decide not to have any revenues? Well, the answer is that they actually lose less money by shutting down than by operating on those particular days. So make sure you understand that profit maximization entails a two-pronged process. Do I produce or not produce? And then once I decide to produce as a firm, how much am I going to produce in order to maximize profits? Also, make sure you understand this dichotomy that can occur between the objectives of managers in a firm and the actual owners of the firm. Sometimes the wants of a manager may not coincide with that of the owners. The examples I used to give is when I was in high school, I worked for my father's gas station. And his objective was to maximize profits, and me working at the organization, sometimes my objectives were not that. I had alternate objectives that might happen. For example, if a friend came into the gas station and needed work on their car, I might cut them a discount because they were a friend of mine, which might not be the decision that my father would have made at that particular time. So realize that sometimes the objectives and the motivations of managers within a firm do not coincide with the owners of a particular firm. All right? And also make sure that you understand that a firm, especially a complicated production process, may engage in different stages of the production process, i.e., they might outsource. They might decide to have somebody else produce a portion of that particular product. So that's depending on the profitability and the approaches that the firm actually makes. And they also decide what markets they're going to engage in. And finally, make sure you have a good understanding of what determines the type of market structure that you're working in. It's very important from a managerial perspective that you understand, am I in a perfectly competitive market? Do I have some level of monopoly power? Or do I fall somewhere in between those two? Because understanding the structure of the market that you're selling in and the nature of competition that you are facing has a direct impact on how you decide to organize the firm and how you decide how much you're going to produce and what kind of discretion you have with regards to pricing.